So two young guys show up at an HBCU in Tennessee with cardboard signs and a couple of MAGA hats. I know, that's real triggering, but believe it or not, it started out great. It really did. Until the orangutans and their fellow effeminate Marxist miscreant male counterparts showed up. Here's a spoiler alert, though. There was no debate. They didn't debate. No, they mobbed. They stole signs, they shouted down ideas, and ran two young men off of the campus in full-blown chaotic rage. I sat and I watched and I said, you know what? If higher learning means lower standards and belligerent, racist behavior, then congratulations, you've accomplished your mission. But today we're going to talk about why grown folks who can't control their emotions should not be in charge of anybody's worldview. We're also going to talk about why, as parents, we must teach our children to model something better. We need to show them how to model self-control, how to speak the truth, and to demonstrate courage no matter the situation. So let's go ahead and let's get into this. Grace and peace, you guys. Welcome back to Unshakable with April Chapman, where we discuss all things social, cultural, political, and theological from a biblical perspective. I am your host, April Chapman, and welcome to today's show. So I want to give you guys a quick rundown of the scene that I'm going to share with you today. There were two conservative activists who were part of the Fearless Debate Style Tour. They got the bright idea to walk onto Tennessee State University campus. Now, to be fair, I don't think there was anything wrong with what they did in essence, right? Now, I've learned that their setup on the campus was unauthorized, or at least that's what many people are saying. And if that's true, I get that part, right? Like these campuses, you guys, they are incredibly hostile. And if most HBCUs, we just need to be honest, they are not open to any kind of dialogue, okay? They don't want their ideas challenged. And so a lot of times, if you approach the university or the college, an HBCU to be specific, requesting to come on campus and to have some sort of public dialogue, most times your request is going to be denied, which is sad, but that's just the reality of how it is. However, requesting a setup, it is the right thing to do. So we can have a conversation about that because I think it's needed, and I would have wished that it would have been authorized, but at this point, it's neither here nor there. But these two young men, they show up with a table and they're wearing MAGA hats, and they have these two signs that say DEI should be illegal and deport all illegals now. And it's kind of along the lines of what Charlie Kirk would do. Prove me wrong. Like, let's talk about it. And so they started engaging students in dialogue. And at first, you guys, it was calm. It was calm. There was actual back and forth. There was a respectful exchange of ideas. And so what I want to do is I want to demonstrate at least some aspect of civility. So let's go ahead and take a look at this.
Enacted by Trump's first administration.
Let me go back. Sorry. My apologies.
Like ancient Greece, right? What would the Spartans do? Well, if they captured a battalion of Athenians, they would take them slave because they're different. They're the outgroup. They're the Athenians. They're inferior, right? So you can't stop that racism. But what you can do is make it illegal to institutionalize it by saying, you can't allow you have to allow everybody to eat at your restaurant. You can't not admit people based on their color. You can't prioritize people based on their color, etc. And I would say that I would say getting rid of DEI works towards that objective.
How do y'all feel that America is not
So I'm playing this to give you guys some context because I want you to see that these young men were not being aggressive, right? They literally just had two signs up and red MAGA hats. And I know, for some people, a MAGA hat is very triggering. That's sad that if that's you, but that's just the reality of the world that we live in. But I wanted you to see this because this is a young man who is standing there and he is listening to their perspective. And now he is chiming in with his perspective. So I wanted you to see that. Now, then there's more video. I'm going to show you some more, but then it goes left. Okay. It goes left really quickly. A crowd starts to form. Tempers begin to flare. They start snatching signs. The campus police end up having to get involved and they end up escorting these guys off of campus for safety reasons. And basically, the translation of all of that is free speech got jumped in the parking lot. So I want you to go ahead and take a look at this clip. So this is where it's starting to get intense. So I'm gonna fast forward it so y'all can just see how it really goes left.
All we did was set up a table. TSU no more, boy. Can't even hear you. Very safe, very black, and very tired of this. They did not walk this way. They parked that way. No doubt. God did not park this way. They parked that way. Let me on camera real quick. Hey, what's up, man? Like, oh, best of hell. You feel me? Like, it's a crazy day out here. It's TSU. You feel me? Hold on.
So, you had an opportunity to see that. And what I want to do now is I want us to examine like these two clips, right? Because what you'll notice is that from the first clip, it starts civil, right? It starts very civil. And then suddenly emotions outrun reason. And I just witnessed behavior from young Black American scholars that was really sad to me. This was incredibly embarrassing. And it was sad because whoever raised these young scholars, I'll be respectful and I'll just call them that. Whoever raised these young scholars didn't teach them that talking is not violence. Okay? Verbal debate is not danger. Okay? Your life is not threatened because someone challenges your deeply held presuppositions. How on earth, I'm trying to figure out, how on earth will these young people survive in a world where you can't even talk to a person who has a difference of opinion than you? How do you even wear a shirt that says saved? There was a young woman who had a t-shirt on and claimed she was saved, and she's screaming in the camera, talking about, and I'm totally saved, and I'm totally tired of this. Ma'am, what are you? What are you tired of? You've been through absolutely nothing other than you've been given the space to act like a petulant child, to yell and scream and shout down anyone who remotely attempts to challenge your deeply held presuppositions. I do question the validity of said profession of salvation. Saved by what and whom, I don't know. But I just wanted to bring that up and highlight that, because my question is, how will you ever expand your horizon and do any sort of personal development or personal growth if you refuse to be civil and to talk to other humans who may disagree with you? My question is, if your ideas evaporate at room temperature, that's not the speaker's fault. Perhaps your worldview is trash and it cannot stand up to objective scrutiny. That's just my opinion on that. What I want to do is just provide some commentary. I want to get some things off my chest, because watching this reminded me of why I absolutely refuse to send any of my children and to spend any of my hard-earned money to send my children to one of these centers of Marxist indoctrination. I'm not doing it. It's not going to happen. I refuse to ruin all that I have poured into them this many years, or for this length of time, as long as they've been alive, to spend my money to send them there for them to come home and act like that. I'm not doing it. I've taught my children that apart from the knowledge of God, you can't know anything. And knowledge and wisdom, based on what I've taught them, it starts with the knowledge of God. And then from there, the eyes of your understanding about everything else in the world becomes so much clearer, because you have started with the right epistemology. It starts with the knowledge of God. And one thing that I'm always trying to teach my own children is that you need wisdom, and it comes from the scriptures. So, for example, I taught them that let every person be quick to hear, slow to speak, slow to anger. Why? For the anger of man does not produce the righteousness of God. This is different from having righteous indignation. I don't believe that that's what we witness here. When James is teaching us or admonishing us to be slow to anger, for anger does not produce righteousness, he is reminding us that if you're listening with the intent to learn, one, you might actually learn something, but that it will quell any sort of hostility from your opponent because you're slow to speak and quick to hear. Well, as you can see from this clip, anger to these people feels powerful, right? Being loud and rude and overwhelmingly obnoxious and disrespectful, it might make you think that you're winning the argument, but you're not. I know that's what this culture is teaching most young people today, that just being loud, belligerent, and obnoxious makes them feel powerful. But this is why they act as if they have absolutely no sense. This is why they're acting this way, because the culture has taught them that this is acceptable behavior. But do you want to know what? All of that screaming and disrespectful behavior, it is nothing more than counterfeit courage. These young people are cowards. They are weak-minded, weak in mind and spirit, and they are cowards. And they are cowards because the person who can actually remain calm despite all of that wrongshousness around them, like what you just saw, that is the one that's exhibiting true courage. Newsflash, self-control is the flex, not acting like a bunch of pavement apes, flexing your face in the camera, being loud and belligerent and ignorant because you refuse to have a discussion and you think that it is more prudent to usher, or should I say mob, these young men off your campus because you're weak-minded, too weak-minded to sit down and have a sensible and valid discussion about areas where you may disagree. Being unwilling to say, you know what, I may actually learn something if I see what the other side is saying. Like, why did they feel compelled to come on this campus with MAGA hats on to talk about DEI and illegal immigration? Could it be that illegal immigration is one of the main issues that is adversely affecting the Black community? And since this is an HBCU, maybe we should talk about how our parents' tax dollars are being used to take care of people who have no right or stake of ownership in this country. And why the cost of probably attending this university is so high, and that one of the reasons why you may lack the funding that you seek is because your parents are spending their tax money just trying to stay afloat, and they really don't have the money to send you to school, so you got to take out loans and all kinds of additional debt just to be educated, to come out only to act like this. I don't want to say educated, indoctrinated, yes, but not educated. There's so many things that I could say about the behavior of these young people here, but here is a question that I want to ask you guys. And that question is, what the heck is college for? Like, I've always believed that college is supposed to be a gym, right, for the mind, where you go and you exercise your intellectual prowess. But what I am learning is that it is not that, obviously. I'm thinking this is supposed to be a place where you're trained in a field of study that's going to carry you into the next phase of your life. But no, I no longer believe that. I'm thoroughly convinced that college today is nothing more than a daycare for your feelings, right? Like, it should be a place where you lift heavy ideas and you are challenged, where you learn to break a sweat, where you build intellectual muscle, right? A place where when you see a viewpoint that you hate or dislike, you've got two options. Either learn how to make a stronger case, or, I don't know, here's a novel idea, you walk away. Who would have thought that walking away is also an option? What you don't get to do, and I don't know why these young people have never learned this, what you don't get to do is mob the conversation because your emotions are out of shape. Who raised these emotionally stunted humans? That's what I want to know. Who raised these intellectually stagnant students? Well, I'm pretty sure that it was either a bunch of melanated Marxists or matriarchal miscreants. Take your pick. Either way, they're both horrible, but I can guarantee you that the vast majority of these students who are attending there were raised by one of those two classes or groups of Blacks, melanated Marxists or matriarchal miscreants. Because this is the fruit, as you can see, they're rotten fruit that stinks to high heavens, and it embarrasses me to see that people are sending children, young adults, to college, and this is how they act. Listen, I have a 17-year-old, and if I saw him on a campus cutting a fool like this, I'd bust him right upside his head. Make no mistake about it, I sure would. This is unacceptable. Don't you know, well, maybe they probably don't, that if one gives an answer before he hears it, it is his folly and shame. The scriptures declare that a man without self-control is like a city broken into and left without walls. That's Proverbs 25:28. The translation is, in the ancient world, walls, they were not optional. Like, if you didn't have walls, that was literally a city's first duty, to erect walls, right? Likewise, self-control. Self-control is not optional for human life because it is the foundational discipline that without that, every other virtue is exposed. You must have self-control. Without self-control, controlling your desires, anger, lust, fear, and peer pressure, they become invading armies that breach your walls and will conquer you. You are permanently reactive. You have no concept of what it means to restrain yourself because you've never exercised that muscle. And so therefore, you're easily conquered, easily controlled, and you're constantly rebuilding after preventable damage. I teach my audience all of the time, or at least my goal is to say, listen, we can be angry, but don't let your anger ambush your ambition. If these young people are supposed to be our future leaders, we are in trouble. Okay, we are in trouble. You want to lead? If you want to lead, first you need to start by mastering your mouth. Okay, especially the females. They were the most shameful of all. Learn how to listen. I know your mama taught you that you should just be able to pop off at the mouth and say whatever it is you want to say in every situation. But if you actually learn to sit down and listen to what others are saying, you might actually learn something. If you're listening with the intent to hear, it puts you in a position where you can ask precise questions. None of these things are hard to do. But when you're raised in a matriarchal squalor type environment, these soft skills are completely absent, and you will find that young people like this, they act just like their mamas. Okay, just chaotic and out of control, a bunch of mini orangutans in training. This disgusted me to watch this. This disgusted me. I want to share something with you. I had come across something by the famed economist Milton Friedman. And he said that freedom is this self-denying ordinance, right? Like, in other words, free societies survive when we restrain the urge to silence what we dislike. That kind of discipline, yes, it is very difficult. It is hard, but it's the only way that liberty can thrive. And so as a Christian, I'm learning how to navigate in this cultural and political space. And I'm learning a lot. Like, my learning curve is very steep, but I have to constantly keep the words of 1 Peter 3:15 on the forefront of my mind. First, that means I have to honor Christ the Lord as holy. Then 1 Peter admonishes us, I'm commissioned to always be prepared to make a defense, an apologia for the hope that is within me, yet do it with gentleness and respect. So between that and the fruit of the Spirit, one of them, which is self-control, that is the only way that I am going to be effective in the marketplace of ideas. And so, to be clear, being gentle isn't weakness. It's literally power under control. We witnessed that from these two young men, and I applaud them. Trust me, I get it. These are my people. And I can't imagine being on a campus, two white young men in MAGA hats thinking, well, we just want to have a discussion. You really thought that you weren't going to be met with hostility? Y'all got a lot to learn, but I do applaud your bravery and your courage. But there is definitely a time to be assertive. However, when debating ideas, it is the preferred method to get your point across. Sometimes you do have to dial it back. So like when I'm on here giving my commentary, yes, I can go hard, but I'm not talking to anyone. I'm talking to the audience. I'm talking to y'all, right? I am not engaged in a debate with someone else on camera. In that context, I'm going to be much different. When debating ideas, gentleness is the preferred method, and it can go a long way. Actually, that is actually one of the things that I admired about Charlie Kirk. He was way more gentler than I am. I mean, I can be a throat cutter, okay? I'm just saying. But I am learning the art of gentleness when debating opponents. I've not arrived yet, but I'm way much more better than I used to be. And I've noticed that a lot of gentleness, we see a lot of it on the conservative side of the political spectrum. But on the left, God, Lord have mercy. No, those custodians of chaos, the DEI bureaucracy, all they do is train students to emote. It's so sad to watch. These kids can't reason. They emote. They emote, they label, right? They do not listen. All they want to do is punish, not persuade. This is how you get crowd theatrics, like what you guys just witnessed, instead of campus thought. There is no such thing as independent thought on these Marxist indoctrination training camps called universities. That's how you end up with young women who think it's appropriate to punch somebody in the face on the streets of New York when just having a simple dialogue about, we think it's evil that you want to murder babies or kill foster kids. Like, she could not control herself. I'm referring to the situation that happened with Savannah Craven. Savannah's calm, being very gentle, just providing credible arguments for her position. And the young lady hauled off and punched her in the face. But I want you guys, I have another clip that I want to show you. I want you guys to take a look at this. This one really resonated with me, and so I want you guys to watch it.
All we did was set up a table.
So let me ask y'all this. Do y'all think that any of them know that Trump announced that he was giving $500 million to HBCUs? You think any of them knew that? And all of them on that campus said that they were being provoked by him asking you questions. And this is why I said just yesterday that the black community is performative and they have selective outrage, because they don't really care about what they hooting and hollering about. They only care when the wrong messenger says it. Because if they actually cared, they would have went down to their local hood and talked to all the gang members and said, you know what, we tired of the violence. Black lives matter. Stop this, stop that. They don't care about none of that. They only care when a white man come on campus with a red hat and they call him a racist and run him off campus. Man. And this is why the black community is failing, bro. It really is. Because they acted like that all because a white man came on campus and was about to start asking them questions. And all they had to do was voice their opinion, say how they feel. But they couldn't. Why? Because they don't even have their own opinion. Everything the black community does is in the name of being black. They have no idea why they do the things they do. It's just because they're black. Why did they go to that HBCU? Probably just because they're black and that's what they were told to do. Why do they think the way they think? Probably just because they're black and their mama or daddy said so. Nobody has their own opinions, bro. Them folks brought out a BLM poster for a random white man on campus. And this is a direct reflection of the black communities and these HBCUs and whatever they be pointing to these kids for them to think the way they think and act the way they act. Because I don't know how much more proof y'all need, but they hate white people. I don't know if y'all could see that, but they hate white people. And these communities and these schools, they teach black power. They teach that the black skin color trumps all. And mind you, a lot of them don't even think that black people can be racist. That's scary. And let's also not forget, a lot of those people are pro-DEI. So they want to be accepted into the workplace because they're black, but yet they hate white people.
I completely agree. Young man. I completely agree with everything that this young man just said. This was performative. Most of this is performative. These young people haven't a clue what the argument is. They want, because they didn't take the time to listen. Just the red hat alone is triggering, because they've been told, I'm supposed to be triggered when I see a MAGA hat, because make America great again is a sign of white supremacy. When I have to live in America, and I know what the argument is. People are like, well, when was America great? If I have to give you a history lesson, greatness does not equate perfection. Okay? We're all fallen sons and daughters of Adam, and America is a young nation, but there are so many pockets of time, in my opinion, when America was great. I can tell you, since so many of you are so disconnected from America, because you've never really assimilated and accepted that you are American, how about I just explain to you when Black America was great, despite oppression, in your opinion. Black America was great before the 1960s, despite the Jim Crow South, when So many of us were raised in two-parent households with fathers who were strong and courageous, and they worked hard and they provided for your grandmother, and they had 10, 12, 15 children, owned their own businesses, may or may not have had a third grade or an eighth grade education, but they were principled and they had morals and values. We were great when we would go to church and we would look to Christ, who was the author and finisher of our faith, and that we did not care what white people thought or felt about us, because we were able to stand up, hold our heads up high, and we understood the dignity and the value that we added because we were image bearers and not because we were Black. We were great. When a 9-year-old emancipated slave by the name of Booker T. Washington made it his life mission to just want to learn how to read, and then wanted to teach other newly emancipated Negroes how to read as well. Faith, family, and freedom. 3 words that define who we are and what we stand for. This November, the Frederick Douglass Leadership Institute invites you to the 2025 DLI Annual Conference, a gathering of bold voices, fearless leaders, and unshakable truth. From November 6th through November 8th, join us at the Hilton Atlanta Northeast in Peachtree Corners, Georgia, where leaders like Bob Woodson Sr., Dr. Alveda King, Bishop Wellington Boone, Dr. Patricia Bailey, Bishop Vincent Matthews, and many more will stand together to declare our faith, our family, our freedom. This isn't just another conference, you guys. It's a movement. This is a call to return to righteousness, justice, liberty, and virtue. And this year, I've got something super special for you. I'll be broadcasting Unshakable with April Chapman live on site, and I'll be sitting down with King Randall, founder of X School for Boys, right here in Albany, Georgia, for a powerful conversation that you do not want to miss. You'll also hear from my brother, the big homie, Pastor John Amanchukwu, a leading voice in the fight for truth in our culture and churches today. So please mark your calendars, November 6th through the 8th, Atlanta, Georgia, the Douglass Leadership Institute's annual conference. Be there, be bold, and be unshakable. Register today at conference.dliinstitute.org. Can't wait to see you there. So as you can see, I have on completely different clothes because yesterday, while I was recording this video on the Tennessee State University orangutan pavement ape debacle, I received the untimely news of Dr. Vodi Bakham's passing. And so I was unable to complete the video, ended up going live. And so by God's grace, new mercies, it's a new day and new clothes. And I really just didn't feel like putting on the same clothes and then trying to mimic the makeup to make it look like yesterday. So y'all know what it is. Listen, I'm going to finish this video because this is important. Listen, but where we left off was I was talking about when America was great. I was talking about Booker T. Washington. But at the end of the day, this is what this comes down to, okay? This comes down to the fact that while I applaud the bravery and effort of these young men, I have to be honest. This was a disaster from the start, not because the marketplace of ideas and the argumentation that these young men wanted to present was wrong. I actually agree with them. They're conservative. We share the same worldview. But the messenger does matter. Let's just imagine if the roles had been reversed, right? Put 2 young Black men or Black women at a PWI and let them set up a table. And what if the response from white folk had been aggressive and racist and mob-like toward them? What do you think would happen right now? Don't you think the mainstream media? Do you really think that they'd be just burying that under the rug? Or would we have to cancel Christmas? Would we have had to cancel Christmas? You know darn well the response would have been overwhelming, like, oh my goodness, look at the racism. How could something like this happen in 2025? You need to defund that you need to defund that institution, rip their funding from them. You need to charge the campus with a hate crime. You know that would be the case, but that's not going to happen here because it's Black folks and Black folks get a pass. But I'm going to tell you what would have been way more better for this to really work out. Because I believe that HBCUs absolutely do need to have their ideas challenged, and there needs to be healthy debate. But I can guarantee you it would have looked very much different if they had called me, if they had called Crystal Jenkins, if they had called Craig Long, Vince Everett Ellison, and John Amanchukwu. And if the five of us would have walked up on that campus, I can guarantee you, Shaquana and them, Taquayshawn, yeah, they would have piped all of that energy down. First of all, I'm from the Bronx, okay? I know Black people. I know my people. I know how to talk to them, and I know how to engage with them in such a way that I would have quelled all that foolishness, because they're not going to try that foolishness with me, okay? You have to understand that when you are in a war, you have to be able to have the wisdom and the discernment to know what weapon to choose and when. Okay? And this was a situation where in this cultural war, on this battlefront of ideas, they pulled out a butter knife when they needed a machete. You don't bring a butter knife when a machete is needed. Okay? Y'all know me. Y'all know Vince. I don't know if you're familiar with Craig Long or John Amanchukwu or Crystal. Y'all think I'm fierce? Crystal Jenkins? Red pill brown girl? Listen. Throat cutter. Okay? Throat cutter. She's born in New York. She lives in Baltimore right now. We know they would not have tried us like this. Y'all see Vince Everett Ellison, the poised statesman who gives speeches all over the country in front of majority white audiences. Y'all ain't seen Vince Everett Ellison, the correction officer. Y'all ain't seen that part of Vince come out, okay? Taquayshawn would have just shut his mouth. And Shaquana and them with all the ghetto hair and all those theatrics yelling up in them young men's face, they would not have done that with Craig Long, Vince Everett Ellison, and John Amanchukwu. I can guarantee that much. Okay? And don't let the Valentino and the K Unger dress fool you. Okay? Don't let it fool you. I will throw some hands. Now, the goal wouldn't be to go on this campus to throw hands. We want to discuss ideas, but we would have been able to challenge these young Black Americans in a way where they would have been left with no choice than to concede the arguments. And this is where having the wisdom and the knowledge and the discernment to know which weapon to choose and when. When it comes to Black conservatism, we are the most coveted and indispensable weapon in your quiver of artillery, and y'all chose the wrong weapon. So that's just my message. Whether this group of young men, I don't know who they are affiliated with, but whoever they are affiliated with, you need to know your enemy. And when you know your enemy, you will know which weapon to choose, and choosing two white boys in red MAGA hats was the wrong weapon. I am not saying that their message was wrong, but it was not going to be well received because those pavement apes did not have the emotional intelligence to exhibit some self-control and listen to the arguments. And so what they did, they garnered strength from one another, and they were feeling froggy because it was more of them than it was of the two white boys. You always garner strength when it's a mob of you. But when you're in the minority, or when you're in an environment with people who already know where you're coming from and where you're going, they are less likely to be aggressive and belligerent because they know that mess is not going to fly with people like us. Okay? So, they dropped the ball. It was an admirable desire to want to go on an HBCU campus, but these kids are built different. They have been told and they've been trained and indoctrinated to believe that they are victims, and nothing these white boys could have said to them would have gotten through because the packaging was wrong. And I am not saying that I think that that is right. What I am saying is that that is the reality. The packaging was wrong, and they were not going to receive that information because they've already come to the table assuming the worst. They believe that these young men are racist. They believe that the MAGA hat is a sign of white supremacy. So if that's what they believe, in order to address and tear down that argument, it needed to come in different packaging. That's all I'm saying. But I will say this, it was incredibly embarrassing and shameful. And my message to the TSU students is you acted precisely like they've been saying how you act. Uncivilized, unintelligent, violent, unable to be reasoned with. You should be ashamed of yourselves because you proved them right. And for the Black folks all on the TikTok that is celebrating and patting these young people on the back, implying that they did the right thing, you should be ashamed of yourself too. The culture is trash. And this is why we're at the bottom. Because we know how to be a big angry mob, but we don't know how to build anything. Oh, our young women know how to twerk, right? But they don't know how to exhibit poise and grace under pressure. They don't know how to do that. They know how to scream and jump up in somebody's face and read them the riot act. But they can't articulate in any sort of winsome fashion what the Bill of Rights is, or the Constitution for that matter. Their heads are full of hair, but what's in between their brains is very much empty. And so for someone and individuals to be egging them on as if this was a flex shows us that we're still a slave ideologically, and we have taken on the very same bully, oppressive type tactics as our former slave masters and Jim Crow oppressors. And what you witnessed on that campus of TSU was Jerome Crow. That was Jim Crow in blackface. It's the concept of Black supremacy and ethnic narcissism. It was Jerome Crow in blackface. Don't tell me that there's no such thing as Black privilege, because you just witnessed it. And I guarantee you nothing is going to be done. There are going to be no charges of hate crime or anything like that. The mainstream media is just going to act like that these white boys deserved what happened to them. And this type of behavior is going to be sanctioned and authorized, and it's going to continue to happen more. But I can tell you what could stop this. Pick the right weapon next time. You should have called us. We would gladly, I've been itching to engage with the pro-blackity blacks, especially of the younger generation, to challenge them on their fruitless and unproductive ideas and bad attitudes and poor behavior and horrible outcomes. Half of them are at TSU, and probably the first 2 years of their time there, they're in remedial classes anyway, because they're products of the K-12 educational system. So they came there already not on grade level. They're in remedial courses, probably getting psychology degrees in women's studies. They're going to come out unable to compete on the basis of their merit because they have been told that they are entitled and that they need DEI to succeed. And you should have called us, and we would have went on that campus, and we would have told those young people the truth, and we would have actually changed some minds, because we would have challenged them, and they would have received that message from people who look like them. But sadly, This is just where it is. You cannot employ two white boys to bring that message because it is not going to be well received. But I'm curious to know. This video was a lot longer and I had to do it in 2 parts, but you're going to be okay. I'm curious to know, what do you guys think? I agree that they should have had permission, but even if they had gotten permission, it wouldn't have made any difference. Instead, they should have been some more selective about the messenger. If you agree with that sentiment, leave me a comment below. If you are like, it shouldn't have mattered who the messenger was, the message is the message. At one point, I am still inclined to believe that we as a people should have the emotional intelligence to receive the message regarding of who the messenger is, but that is just not where we are. I just have to be honest with that. That's just not where we are right now as a society. I don't take personal offense when a white person makes a truth claim that is objectively true, because I am not emotionally stunted, right? In my evolution as a human. It's because I am a Christian and dwelt with the Spirit that I don't think the worst of a person just because of what they look like. But the average person cannot say that. The messenger does matter, and we need to be honest and have a conversation about that. But I'm curious to know, what do you guys think? Whatever it is that you believe or think, disagree or agree with, leave me your comments down in the description box below. And until next time, you guys, stand firm, stay bold, and above all else, stay unshakable. I appreciate your patience as I'll try to salvage this video. Grace and peace.